afternoon, everyone. Yep, hello. Yep, we're happy to have you join us today. Exciting to see so many people as they start streaming into our webinar, where we are looking at the trends in BFSI. Our speakers are really excited to actually have you here. I'm here in Singapore. I'm YC. I'll be the moderator for today. And our speakers actually come from different places, mostly Southeast Asia, but we also have a few people from actually Czech Republic, Central Europe, and despite the time differences, thanks to clever technology, we can actually all meet here today comfortable. So wherever you are, I mean, grab a coffee or tea. I think it'll be a very, very interesting session for the next 1 hour. Make yourself comfortable, and then we'll slowly start the session. So before we start it, there's a few things I'd like to mention here before we start. So we have data, marketing, and customer experience professionals here from Meiro, ADA, and also Home Credit. They will share an overview of digital trends in BFSI and discuss them together. By the end of it, there'll be a Q&A session. Now that's where actually you use the Q&A box at the bottom to pop in your question, and then we'll pick from the box there, and then we will answer as many as we could by the end of the webinar. Now at the end of this webinar, we'll also be running a quick survey, so to let us understand what kind of topic you'll be interested in the future, and just really, I mean, just to get some feedback so that can help us improve in the future. So you already chat a little bit about the Q&A box. I mean, if you have done a few webinars before, or you attended a few, that's where you put in your Q&A. The webinar is recorded, and we'll be sharing the video with you after this. I mean, you have registered your email with us, and then that's something that we will be sending the link after the webinar to you for the recording. So just a quick intro. I mean, Meiro is actually a customer data platform that unifies your customer data from online and offline channel to enable analytics, customer modeling, and activate the data to optimize the customer experience. Now, you have actually seen 2 intro videos just before this. I think the very interesting part is that CDP is a big topic nowadays, and I think that's something that we should be looking out for. It's a very powerful tool designed for business user, just to really take care of the customer data from integration to activation in different platforms. And we know that's not an easy thing, and having a platform really helps. So later on, we also have Manish, which will help you to showcase a little bit on Meiro. Now, let me just check on the attendance. Wow, okay, we've got quite a lot of people coming in now. Yep, just a little bit more before I introduce our first speaker. Yep. So our first speaker today, which will be Keith. Actually, Keith Lee. He's the head of finance services, which is from the business insights team of ADA. Yeah, I'm very happy to him. I've been working with him on a lot of our BFSI clients. Yeah, so I'm going to hand over to him to do a short intro, and I think he's going to share with you an overview in the trends of the digital disruption that we are seeing in BFSI. Over to you, Keith.
Thanks, YC. Once again, very excited to be part of this, working alongside my comrades from Home Credit, Meiro, as well as ADA, like myself, YC. So I'll be actually working through a brief deck. If I may just share the screen, just one moment. Yeah, so for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be sharing my humble observation, or at least the observations that we have obtained from our research, which is regarding the digital disruptions that's happening within the BFSI sector. So broadly, there are 3 trends that we have observed. I think trend 1 is, as we all know, these days with the incidents that are happening with regards to COVID, we've seen a huge shift in terms of onboarding channels for financial services, and one of which is the digital channel, which is becoming more and more popular. It's becoming more of a norm, because a lot of us are kind of driven to be able to obtain financial services via the digital channel. So therefore, we feel that it's gradually going to become non-negotiable for customers to be onboarding via this channel. And I think we have some data to back it up. If you look at how COVID-19 alone has actually driven the usage of digital, you look at first-time app users that are aged between the 45 to 54. In the low-income segments, for example, there is a huge increase in terms of uptake for digital apps. So therefore, I think that as a whole, the industry readiness to undertake services via digital channels is increasing. And in terms of the market numbers, if you talk about payment growth, for example, in the Southeast Asia, I think we have also seen almost a double increment in terms of making payments via the digital channels. So therefore, we are also seeing this as an opportunity whereby customers are becoming more accustomed to digital channels. And at the same time, businesses need to be able to react very quickly to be able to pivot these growth opportunities. And then when we look at the specific financial products, here we've broken down into various financial segments. What is interesting here is that we see there's a huge growth in terms of e-wallet usage across the 5 main countries in ASEAN. I guess in this kind of context, the biggest challenge is still how to actually gradually educate the general public to shift from the traditional cash usage to digital payment channels. And as a result of the pandemic, I think this is going to be a huge driving factor for generally consumer to be able to onboard to such channels. But while we talk about the situation, there are also incumbent challenges that are being faced by the financial industry. We talk about being able to cater to the customers who are going via the digital route, but at the same time, there needs to be a balance in terms of meeting the regulatory expectations. So over here, when we look at the government's drive towards more reliable ways to onboard customer via digital channels, we talk about digital banking licenses being conferred across the board, and then also the eKYC mechanisms that need to kick in to be able to help us effectively manage this process. Therefore, we see there's a need for transformation to happen, right? When it comes to the enabling channels that have such capabilities for us to legitimately onboard customers. And then we also look at digital customer identification. What could be the ways to actually enhance and smoothen the path for customers to come on board via such channel. And having said that, I think there are also pressing issues, with regards to the pandemic. When we look at what's happening back in March or early or late February, for example, where most of us are actually facing the lockdown situation, right? So that becomes an increasing challenge for the banks to be able to serve their customers via the usual channels. You talk about the barriers of being able to conduct face-to-face interactions. And as a result, how do we actually facilitate physical document collection throughout this process? And not to mention being able to obtain a legitimate digital signature. And then when we look at on the supply end, APAC is home to about 40 different regulators, right? But what we have observed here is about 3 out of 5 of the banks in the APAC still do not have a digital account opening capabilities. So that also boils down to a question on the infrastructural readiness for us to do this. And we have seen the vast opportunity that's present in the region. When we look at the research being done by World Bank, for example, out of the entire population, we still having quite a substantial group of population that do not even possess an official identity. And we've seen the benefits of being able to tap into this perspective, which can possibly result in up to 90% cost saving in terms of customer onboarding if the financial institutions are able to get eKYC component right. But having said that, I think there's going to be a heavy implication if it's not done right, because we've seen heavy penalties being imposed on financial institutions, for non-compliance of data security. So this is going to be a balance that needs to be created between being able to tap into the market opportunity while staying relevant and compliant with local rules and regulations. The next trend that I would like to share with all of you is regarding how do we actually strike a balance between financial inclusiveness and creditworthiness. So I think there's broadly a challenge that the global regulators are facing at the moment with regards to being able to serve the underbanked, unbanked, and the SMEs, of course. So how do we actually strike a balance to be able to confer credit while being able to comply with the local rules and regulations? So some of the incumbent challenges that we observe here, when we look at the conventional way of assessing or approving credits, the usual ways where we would fall back on historical data, such as credit payment, repayment behavior, the rate of default for existing financial services. But at the same time, we also see this as being quite passive in the sense that we do not, there isn't a mechanism out there that allows us to proactively or predictively determine the creditworthiness of an individual. There is also higher operational costs when it comes to secondary assessment, collection, etc., for the default group of customers. So this becomes like an increasing cost structure for most of the banks. And as a result of the lack of supporting data, especially when we talk about unbanked, the underserved segments, it's very difficult for banks to be able to confer credit to this group of customers. So broadly speaking, there's a dilemma that's happening in the market right now regarding being able to maintain liquidity, especially during the COVID-19 situation, while being able to continuously confer loan in a safe and cost-effective way. And here we have some numbers to back up the assessment. When we look at what's happening with COVID and how it subsequently impact the performance of the banking sector, across the board, if you look across the major nations within APAC, we've generally seen an increase of non-performing assets as well as credit costs due to the increasing non-performance of banking loans, for example. And the reason why we see this as a huge opportunity for the financial institutions, where if you look at the ASEAN population as a whole, out of 100%, we only have about 27% who actually have a formal means to gain access to financial services. And we're talking about a massive volume of up to 438 million of unbanked individuals. And I think there are plenty of research out there that backs this statement, where by being able to tap into this segment, we are generally talking about an increase in GDP of up to 6% and 3 times the economic contribution by 2030. So next we move on to insurance. So we have to look at it as a sort of like a transformation process that's happening within the insurance segment, whereby we kind of look at it from 2 main perspectives. One of which is a demand, where we generally have a growing pool of younger population, right, the millennials, who generally demands things that are extremely convenient at speed and be able to cater to their demand via digital channel. But at the same time, when we look at it on the supply side, there's an unprecedented scrutiny on traditional model of onboarding insurance customers, as well as claim management. I think this is probably down to the legacy situation where the traditional agency model has been quite prolific in terms of serving the insurance industry. But as we move towards the digitalization era, I think this is probably an area that needs to be tackled in the sense, how do we are able to cater to this group of customer via a different operational model. So some of the challenges that we see, in terms of being able to grasp with the top technology out there, we see a lot of insurance striving to get on board onto digital platforms. But at the same time, I think due to the vast availability of solution out there, which is the best model, which is the best fit solution to cater to the insurance company need. So this becomes like a situation where it's becoming very difficult for insurance company to find a right fitting solution for their organization. Then we look at competition, right? Gone are the days where insurance can only be offered by insurance company. We are also seeing a mushrooming of a lot of non-traditional technology players who are able to offer very agile kind of services like micro insurance, for example, that caters better to specific target audience. And then there's this, as I mentioned, legacy issue. The traditional insurance setup usually sits in different silos. So it's becoming very difficult for insurance companies to be able to cross-sell their offerings within their existing customer base, and not to mention being able to tap into additional customers. So we've seen some introduction of new technologies such as blockchain, which I think there's a research conducted by PwC saying that we can possibly reduce the cost of administrative process by being able to harness this kind of technology into the insurance companies' operations. And automation, served in different purposes. But I think one of the main area that we see in terms of benefits is cost of claims. I think most insurance companies are striving to contain the cost of claims, right? So I think this is an area where new technology can actually step in to help address this gap. So in a nutshell, I think customers are driving, it's no longer a one size fits all scenario where a customer would simply just take whatever that's available in the market. I think it's more the other way around, where customers are actually driving the demand for insurance. So we talk about the greater need for convergence. Ideas such as the convergence of insurance with e-commerce, how do we actually bundle insurance offering via different channels becomes increasingly important. When customers are becoming more accustomed to personalized kind of insurance products, so that also leads to the right platforms to be in place to be able to cater to customers' needs in an agile method. So just a little outlook. So we see substantial growth in terms of digital finance, but specifically within the various segments that we are looking at, we see a huge growth potential for different offerings such as digital investments, digital learning, digital lending in that sense, where customers it's becoming more challenging for customers to be able to obtain credit via digital channel. But the essence here is being able to cater to these needs will definitely unlock a lot of potential. And this is rather aspirational, where we see the future of financial banking ecosystem no longer look at things in isolation. So it's all about the means to be able to stitch various components within the customer onboarding journey and find a way to actually seamlessly cater to the digital onboarding process of the customers. And by being able to tap into this, I think there are various benefits which I've outlined in the deck here. In terms of compliance, we talk about more agile ways to be able to meet regulatory compliance, speak to customer, so on and so forth. So that would bring me to the end of my presentation. Over to you, Bfsi.
Thank you, Keith. Well, it's I really like the last slide. I think banking is a little bit more like a transparent thing to us. It should facilitate our life. And I think a lot of banks and BFSIs are trying to actually integrate that into our life and make it easy for us to actually, to get insured or to bank easily without actually interfering with our life. So yeah, very, very nice slide there. We're going to switch over to the panel discussion now. I'm going to bring aboard two other speakers. So you will have Pavel, who's actually the regional manager at Home Credit. Hi, Pavel. I'd like you to do a quick introduction of yourself. Yep. Over to you.
Thank you, IC, and hello, everybody. My name is Pavel Schemberger, and I work for Home Credit, as IC mentioned. And if you're not aware, it's quite a major consumer finance company in Asia, not only in Asia. And we're really trying to serve also the unbanked population that Keith mentioned previously. And myself, you could just say that I'm the data guy, really coming from the consulting services, joining the financial services. And also lately, I kind of switched sides, going from the risk department to the CRM, to the sales side. So now trying to leverage the data more on the not only sales and business, but also let's say customer experience. But yeah, generally just trying to leverage data all along the way.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear you with the questions that we have. Yep. And we have also Manish, who's actually the Partnership and Business Solution Manager at Meiro. Over to you to give a quick introduction of yourself. Yep. Manish.
Thanks, Bfsi. Hi, this is Manish. I am from Meiro. I manage partnerships. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So hi, everyone. This is Manish. I manage partnerships and solutions at Meiro. I come from a technology and marketing background. So I think what I really like doing this days is actually talk about data. And I think customer data platform is the new, I'd say, the foundation for digital transformation, better customer experience and marketing. And I'm glad to be a part of such a journey. And it's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Manish. So I'm going to kickstart with the questions that I have. So I think one of the key things that I think we need to talk about is that what digital disruption trend will stay for good and will have the biggest impact in the industry. Maybe Pavel, you'd like to start off with that question. Yeah.
Definitely. I wish I knew which gonna stay for good, but generally I think we can agree that the digitalization, and going through it online is probably the way. And Keith laid the ground very nicely. If I just may to comment on it a little bit, what he mentioned, I really can see, within the home credit, within the business, that we started this some time ago, and it takes some time, also a lot of say regulatory requirements, the technical need to go fully, let's say, online. But I can mention that there was this initiative called Master Contract within home credit, which really allowed us to kind of survive the first round of COVID when there was like a strict lockdown in the Philippines. And it basically allowed us to still sell to the existing customers. So it wasn't onboarding of the new ones, but this, let's say, allow us to maintain some cash flow in this, unexpected situation before we could react, also for onboarding of new customers. Let's say also technologically wise, as mentioned, that a lot of population missing the official ID. We a long time ago started collected also the fingerprints as a part of application, but it seems that this technology is not gonna survive. So obviously switching to selfies and the face recognition. And lastly, maybe to mention that also previous setup was the sales assistant, and probably you can see it also in the bank, sitting behind the desk, facing the laptop, and looking at the customer across the table. So we try to change that. Now the sales associate having the tablets with our app installed, and they facing the exactly same front end. So actually, it's already part of onboarding, that they just together filling out the application form, and it's exactly the same as if the clients would download the app themselves. So this is really just confirming the trends that Keith was mentioning. And if I may also comment a little bit on the credit scoring part, which is actually my background. I would mention that the home credit is quite good at this. It's really our, let's say, forte, doing the automated credit decision. But you can have perfect models. It's going to be all great, and data people like me tend to really rely on the data. But it's not just that. You also gotta have a simple product, explain it in a good way. Have if you want to go fully online, you have solid onboarding in the way the clients understands everything. Just explain them, show them payment calendar, so it's really support the whole thing, not just the first decision, but really the ecosystem of the customer. And in regards to the credit scoring, you can see it used to be really secretive. Now you can see some fintechs really going more open about this, that showing you your credit score and actually guiding you how can you increase it. Share more data, or transact with us more, so you are eventually eligible for the loan, etc. And maybe let's say something which was not mentioned, but it's a big topic everywhere, and I would mention it in the terms of, let's say, super apps. And in terms of financial institution, if you really think about it, that the clients, they don't want the money as the final product, right? They want the money as the mean to purchase something else. And now it's like two-step process. You first get the money, and then you might go buy something. I think it's better to really have this connected. And if you think about some financial super app, and we trying some steps in home credit to integrate a lot of this initiative, really already give the clients let's say price comparison engine. You can have the marketplace there, really allow them to transact even without getting credit from you. So I would say it's really consolidation of these services, also the insurance, etc. So yeah, this is just my reaction to the keys, and just confirming this is really happening.
Yeah, well, very interesting insights. I mean, I really like that how all the services can come together in one app and actually make it very seamless for the customer. So yeah, well, can you just share a little bit more? I mean, on home credit. I mean, how do you see that part of that, that process that makes the customer experience even better? Could you share a little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah, generally it's really the last thing I mentioned, that the customer, this process is kind of redundant because eventually they just want the final product. So it's really make it easier for them. And so it can be, shorten the process, remove some fields from application form, which are there just obsolete already, but it's just everybody keeping it there because it's sometimes hard to change something. So really think as a customer would do it, remove some unnecessary blocks in there, and also give the client way to transact the way they are used to. Some still prefer cash, so let them withdraw it. Some prefer the digital. So really to help the customer to make it seamless and not just some kind of obstacle, but really help along this way. I think that's the correct approach right now.
Yeah, I mean, they say if consumer just want the benefit, right? They don't need the process and everything to get in the way. Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely.
The second question that I have is what changes should companies in Bfsi take up and that will help to thrive for current digital disruption trends and be prepared to take on future challenges? Maybe I can get Keith to ask to share a little bit about this. Over to you, Keith. Yeah.
Thanks, YC. Well, that's a $1 million question. Because in my opinion, there's no silver bullet to meet such an aspiration. But broadly speaking, I'm looking at possibly several aspects of the financial institutions' operations to be able to meet such goal. And it needs to be done holistically, in my opinion. So one of which is the organizational culture, structure, and people. I feel everything rests with starts with the human resource that is being put together, for any sort of digital transformation exercise in a company. So I think we have seen some efforts, some organizational behavioral change in the banking and the insurance sector, coupled with the mushrooming of the fintech, where we are gradually seeing more diversified expertise being placed in the financial institutions. We talk about the non-traditional financial professionals, like data scientists, IT professionals, who are coming together with the incumbent banking managers to put together a series of foundation for digital transformation. So I think collectively, it's the people that serve the foundations, and I think once we have kind of reached that critical mass of having the right human resource setup, I think it's all about shaping up the right digital culture and to also drive a holistic digital strategy across the organization. Now, on the technical side, I think there are several aspects that need to be taken into consideration, especially when it comes to data asset management. We know that financial institutions are generally endowed with a wealth of customer data, but the problem is they usually sit in silos. So how do we actually come up with the means or the technology in place to be able to harness and create an omni-channel across different financial divisions, and to be able to enable cross-selling, upselling. There's also this growing competition that we're seeing. So therefore, being able to tap into specific customer base becomes extremely or growingly challenging. So I think the means to be able to create hyper-targeting and being able to come up with personalized financial offerings will be the key for success moving forward. Then on the flip side, if you talk about the increasing use of digital, you're bound to actually, especially for an industry like bank, right, where data security compliance is paramount to the bank's success. So I think naturally, the foray into digital also means increasing security and compliance risk. So the bank needs to be able to come up with a very sound data governance or digital governance policy to be able to manage the undergoing digital risks that they are facing. And then lastly, I would say being able to embrace new technologies. I know there are plenty of technologies out there like MarTech, digital data management solutions, right? To be able to help the banks break silos in their data setup. But I think at the same time, there are also other technologies like AI, machine learning, IoT, which is gradually playing important roles in driving the FSI's business growth. So in a nutshell, I think there are multiple perspectives to be tackled to be able to meet such growth.
Okay, maybe we can get Manish to chip in a little bit on the AI and machine learning part. I think you have the technology background. I like to hear. Yeah.
I think before like any digital transformation or AI projects, really, you need to set the foundation first, right? The foundation is data, and the data belongs to the banks and the insurance companies. They might be sitting in that data in some kind of a warehouse, SAP systems, people interacting on apps, webs, and watching ads. So the first thing I think for any BFSI is to understand what data they can procure, what they really have, and realize the power of that data, and kind of bring those data sets into a unified system where they can kind of stitch the journeys of the customer itself. So for example, like I had a very weird experience with one of the banks. So I use a credit card, and I went to Facebook, and they're selling me the same credit card which I already have. So like for me, it's like, why are you wasting your money on throwing an ad on me on Facebook, right? Because they were not connecting that social data with their kind of warehouse system or their CRM system. So that journey is always truncated. So whenever you move to a path of AI and machine learning, the first path is to build that data foundation first. Let the data sets be clean and I would say rightful enough for your machine learning, because machine learning is not like plug and play. It's going to learn over time. It's going to test the results and then improve the algorithm. But before we go there, I think it's very important to set the data foundation, understand your power of data, which you already, I'm sure every bank, every institutions has a lot of data, but it's how you make it and bring it into action. So I think any good success story around AI and machine learning starts with let's clean the data first, let's understand what we have, and then give the systems or the machines to predict what can be done better. But I think this is the foundation, and I totally agree with Keith and Pavel. I think AI is going to change a lot of things, but before we go there, let's be digitally smart, and yeah, and it definitely should work out.
Thank you, Manish. I think then the next part will be definitely we talk about governance and regulations, because I think with so much data at the bank's disposal, the BFSI, I think that the customers will be thinking, how are you going to use it, and how am I protected? What's the regulation of it? Let me get Pavel to share his point of view on this. Over to you, Pavel.
Yeah, thank you. This question is not the sexy one after AI, etc., but it's definitely the important one. If I may share, the personal story. When I was first coming to the Philippines, joining financial services from Europe, it was time the GDPR was implemented. And I was in my head thinking, oh, I'm going to Asia. There is not this regulation. We don't have to worry about it, because back here it was complicated. A lot of projects, it was the new thing. And since I joined in the Philippines, the exactly same GDPR regulation was established. And you can imagine there was some moment everybody was like finding their way. Management was not happy. It was slowing down everything. But then, we invested the time, really tried to understand that, get our company in order with the regulation. And now it's pretty much, you don't even think about it that much. It's just, we doing that. We are like compliant, and it's out of the way. But of course, it requires some kind of investment and some time to do this. And the thing is that it's, if you think about it, not as just like the showstopper, but actually it can be the advantage, because the clients are generally more aware about this. So you can even, if you are transparent, you can turn it as your advantage. And generally, as mentioned, the gamification of credit scoring, etc., the clients are actually, they would like to share the data with you if they have confidence into you and then they want the product. So really turn this into the advantage, and to be super specific, I guess in most of the countries with such regulation, it's a lot of about the client consent. So the great start is really to review the consent, make it readable for client, but same time think about the use cases you would like to use the data for, also in some short-term future perspective, and make this happen and allow it to. And I would mention maybe last area that I wouldn't say it's just thanks to regulation, but general approach. As you can see, the APIs ecosystems of Facebook, etc., is like closing down. Previously, it was a lot of interest in external data, really get some like joining databases and leveraging the external data. And now I can see the shift more into internal data. So it's also good to think that if you're missing some data, so collect it yourself. It might take again some time, but you have confidence in the data, how they are collected. What Manish mentioned, also connect your internal databases and leverage the data. So I guess this is the way around the regulation. And lastly, really think about make clients' life easier. It's not just the credit scoring and generating the offers and targeting, but also you can pre-fill the applications for clients to make their life easier. Help them to navigate within the app via some machine learning and really remove some unnecessary obstacles along the way. I think that this might be the correct approach.
Yep, definitely. I think while you say that regulation is not a sexy topic, it's very important to me. I mean, I had a credit card fraud on me and caused my rating to go down really badly, and it wasn't even my fault. And then when I was trying to call up the bank and try to get, the credit card just to get them to rectify it, cost me 6 months of time, and a visit to the police station. It wasn't fancy. I mean, I would have thought that, if the credit is done properly, then my life will be much better. So no, it's definitely a sexy topic for me. Yeah. So looking at the internal data, I think that's where it's very important to put your data together and making better use of it. Let me get Manish to share a little bit more on how some of the BFSI actually have leveraged internal data, put them together in the CDP, and actually get better results. Over to you, Manish.
Yeah, thank you, YC. So I would really like to take this opportunity to actually present something and actually show how a platform like ours can really kind of pull that use case which we are just discussing. How do you get the data right? So, okay, let's take an example of a bank here. So, we all know there are certain data sets that they already have. So one is obviously their customer service, right? So this is where people, are calling, emailing them, creating all those tickets. So that's one of the core customer touch points, and that data is super important for the banks and the customers as well. Obviously, they kind of have a database which is very similar to a CRM system where they know, all the PII data about their customers, what kind of products they're using, all kinds of, strict PII data that sits there. Now we cannot ignore the digital apps and website, and the bank also needs to track what are their customers doing on the websites, what kind of sections they are reading into. Similarly, on the app, they need to make sure, like I'm sure, like every bank has a goal or an insurance company has a goal to get an app downloaded onto their customers, right? Then that's where you kind of get into the system, interact with them with the notifications, make their life easy, right? So track that data as well. They usually have an NPS, which is a net promoter score, how they want to, score their customers based on different behaviors. There's an e-wallet app as well. The bank would have where it's the change, right? The PayLah world has come in, and everyone is so easily using e-wallets and making things happen very quickly. And obviously, there are certain MarTech systems like Marketo they might be using for email marketing. So imagine a customer is coming into the system through so many different sources, and this is an example I really want to take care to like the audience know like how the sources can be a lot. So this is still a small version of it, but going back and interacting with the bank itself. Now, I would really want to show you, like, let's say one of the customer itself, let's say real example, how the customer would be interacting and how do you kind of just start journeys together. So let's take an example. So there is a customer called Tiffany McMillan. Obviously, they have their email ID. they have a date of birth that comes from the database. So you can say, hey, this user is 47 years old. She comes from Quezon City in Philippines. You have a phone number. And now I'm going a bit into the marketing world and terminology. So, in the app side, you have an advertising ID, or we call the device ID. So you store that as well. You store the cookies, you store Google and kind of programmatic IDs as well. This is going to be used when you do the activation. The most smartest part you do is kind of build attributes in a single customer view. So let's try to know Tiffany better. And honestly, when you know your customers that better, you can really do wonders. So let's see what is Tiffany doing on the customer service. So she has raised 4 complaints. All of them seems to be closed, which is good. So we have a client who really told me why customer service really brings a lot of value when you attach it to different data sets. So uh, they don't run a marketing or an advertising campaign to the customer if he already has a customer complaint, because they want to make sure we don't go and sell something else before the previous issue is not solved. So like, it's a very interesting exclusion use case which one of our clients do it, and then I really understand why customer service is so important as well. Now, what is Tiffany doing on the website? So she likes the credit card page. She exited on this. She came organically. So she kind of signed up organically on the website itself. Has she done any kind of form submissions? Similarly, okay, she's not getting into your email marketing, but let's say if she does, so you can really track what was the last email she opened, what are the campaigns that she has been exposed to, what is the market of engagement score or email open rate. So imagine I'm combining email with website and customer service already, but going forward, I want to combine this with the database itself. So here you see, okay, Tiffany has an investment product, and her phone number is this. So this is something we came from the database. And similarly, she also uses the app. When did she download? What is she doing? Has she done any card transactions in the last 30 days? No. So she's kind of fading or churning from the app already. This is one of the signals. Similarly, what is a NPS? She is a promoter, then she became a neutral and a promoter again. Similarly, she doesn't use the e-wallet. You kind of, build those smart, information about your customers around the favorite transaction type, the amount of money they have spent in, let's say, 2 years. And this all information then becomes the foundation for your next acquisition, cross-sell, upsell, and marketing campaigns. Another thing we definitely need to do is build a timeline of your customers. And the timeline should be against not just one data, it should be across. So she came into the system in March 2020. She's still using in September 2020, to which I have the data. Now let's see, if I want to see what did she do last. So let's see, she came onto the website and okay, she did a transaction through her Apple phone, investment 800. Okay, her NPS score was updated. So imagine you're able to know so much closer to your customer. So when you want to do your activation or your acquisition campaign, you can kind of start building those smart segments. So let's try to do that as well and take a use case. So what I'm trying to do is I'm gonna find all the people in Indonesia who are my customers already, but have a potential to upgrade, cross-sell, upsell a product, but I want to filter them down to that level that when I activate my campaign or my messaging, it brings a lot of ROI. So let's do this exercise right away. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is I'm saying, hey, I want to start saying, I want all the people who have the lifetime spending frequency, let's say greater than 10. And I want to make sure they use the investment product, because investment is usually a high-end product in a bank. And I want to also make sure when they come to my website, they also enter through the investment page. So imagine you're combining your database with the website activity of the customer and also combining with the lifetime spending frequency already. Then I want to make sure the category under which this customer falls, all these customers falls, are promoters, so which is good. Again, I want to make sure in the last 30 days, they have not churned. So I want to make sure that in the last 30 days, they have made at least 10 transactions. Again, I don't want to make sure they come to my system socially, organic. So let's put it organic here. And then I'm also combining the favorite transaction type, which is shopping. In this case, I would like to do an investment. And I want to make sure that like I can keep doing this, adding this condition. But this is so important to kind of build a niche segment. When I do this, the system says to me, out of your 80.5K customers, I have 12,000 customers. And imagine I have combined so many informations from different data sources into a one simple segmentation engine, and that really solves problem. Okay, now what? Okay, I have built this. I have 12,000 customers. Okay, I'm proofreading my statement from here. 80K, I got 12,000 customers where this equals to this and this equals to this. What do I want to do with this? That's the omni-channel that it comes in. So now I would really want to have the same campaign with the same kind of a creative, with the same offer across all the systems. When I say all the systems, that includes social, that is Facebook. I want to send the same campaign on Google. I want to also activate the same EDM with the same offer, and probably a portrait desk as well. Why omni-channel is so important, especially nowadays, is because I'll give you an example here. Because once I was traveling from Singapore to Bangkok, and I went to the website and I got a ticket for, let's say, $300. After a while, let's say after 10 minutes, I got an ad, and on Facebook it says fly now at $200, the same airline. I was like, why did you not tell me 10 minutes before? It's not their problem, because they didn't knew this is the same customer Manish who came to my website is also on the Facebook. So that identity was missing, and the messaging was totally different. And this is where you're gonna bring all your data sets together, build your smart segments, and do an omni-channel activation. I've had clients whose cost per acquisition has gone by 50% down. So they were spending $10 to get one customer. Now they're getting it at 5. So you're directly having a good ROI and saving money, and plus you're building the best customer experience. Plus you are going to build the right data foundation, and this is how the digital transformation would lead to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manish. I mean, we have a question from one of the audience. Actually, he was asking, what kind of results have you seen using this CDP tool for financial service? I think you have some results to share, right?
Correct. So with one of our clients, so we have two case studies internally. One is obviously the cost per acquisition. So that went down drastically by 50%. And they have adapted to this platform, and any segments or any activation that happens through the system now. So they have decided, like, it took a lot of time because banks are a huge organization. So they had to go to different departments, share their case studies. But I think 50% is a good start in a year's time. Second case study was with another insurance client where the average order value, where let's say if I was buying $100 of a product every day through their website, it moved to 140. So you're already having a $40 per average, on top. So this only happens because, when I go to the website, I get the right experience, I get the right message. They know what I want. They know my behavior online and offline, and then building the right messaging for me. So I think these are the two case studies that we have had especially within the, BFSI sector. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Manish. I'm going to there's another question that comes through. I'm going to just quickly look at it. How do you serve a customer whose request is beyond your approved threshold or limit? For instance, my agent's transaction limit is about $5,000 per pay, but I have a high volume merchant who wants his limit increased to 15,000. So is that something that maybe Pavel or Keith, one of you, like to take this?
Yeah, I think I can answer. Probably not the best answer, since I really see this through the lenses of the risk department. So if the request, is within the let's say limits which are approved by the risk department, then it's all right. And if not, I'm afraid there's not really satisfying the customer in this way, and it can be educate him that we need more data, or transact more with us, so going forward we can accommodate this. Or if through the lenses of data, really seeing his request in the data, and if there are like multiple customers, it needs to be considered while designing the product or doing some changes. But immediately, I'm afraid I don't have good answer that you can just like that accommodate such requests if it's outside some risk boundaries.
Yeah, I think if the customer has a good credit score, then that won't be an issue, right? I mean, that will have been passed straight away, and then that won't be rely on the agent. So I think that's where having reliable data, real time, make the customer experience good. I mean, imagine someone who have a very high credit limit, and then he's being asked about this, it will most really be not a very good customer experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that just to, sorry, Tom, please go ahead.
No,
if I may just add on to what Pavel has mentioned earlier regarding alternative credit score, I think that's a good situation or use case there based on what the question was asking about. How do we actually are we able to make quick decisions, right, in terms of credit decisioning, by being able to tap into alternative data sources? I think in that particular case, if it's an existing customer, the usual process is where you will actually look at a traditional or the historical financial record of that particular customer. But in a scenario where we are able to explore different data sources such as telco, utility, you may actually get different views or different perspective of the particular customer's creditworthiness. And I think the beauty of alternative scoring mechanism is speed, right? The keyword here is speed. We do not require the customers to be submitting additional supporting document for you to get the additional credit increase. It could be done via a quick assessment of their record with other data sources. So I think that's my 2 cents on how there could be a possible way for us to enable such a request.
Yeah, I think we're really looking at the benefits and not the process itself. Okay, I'm just being mindful of time. I'd like you all to share, maybe just round the room. I mean, what advice would you give to professionals working in the Bfsi industry on adapting to digital disruption? Maybe we start with Pavel first, then Keith, then Manish. Yeah, Pavel, over to you.
All right, good question. I think I might be a little bit biased with this, but generally I would really recommend to get comfortable with the data. Even if you're not, analyst, you're not directly responsible to work with the data. I think it helps a long way to understand, because in the end of the day, if you get some insights, on the slide, there is some only part true to that. It tells you just part of the story. So it's good to know also where the data coming from, which system is generating that, because even if you connect all the system, as Manish showed, the data might be slightly differently generated. The same metrics doesn't necessarily mean the same. So it's really good to understand this and get some exploration, learn to work with it a little bit, and I think it helps tremendously. And then you also generally in the whole digital workspace, all the mobile apps, it really helps you to navigate through this incoming or the thing which is already here.
Okay, thank you, Pavel. Keith, over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, my views are quite similar to Pavel. I think at the end of the day, any institutions who is intending to undergo any sort of digital transformation needs to be braced for long-term initiative, because it's an ongoing process, and the speed of technological evolution is happening so quickly that things changes, new technologies coming up almost every day. So I think keeping abreast with what's happening in the industry when it comes to technological evolution is extremely important. I think at the same time, I think being able to have the right sets of expertise that sits within the organization to be able to manage and develop such a transformation process will also be extremely important. I think on the marketing side, I can't stress more the importance of being able to create hyper segmentation and targeting for your customers, not just by being able to tap into the first party data, but also being able to explore ways where financial institutions are able to harness data sources from third party, for example. That kind of broadens up the addressable market eventually. And I think in a nutshell, to accomplish this, I think fortunately these days, a lot of our financial institutions do not have to reinvent the wheel on their own. There are a lot of data partners and technology partners out there that fits along. That helps the financial institution to fit capabilities along their digital transformation process. So I think that way it helps to create greater efficiency in the longer run.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. How about you, Manish?
I think for me is to always think like a customer. Okay, let's say anything you buy today at a grocery store or a mall or a bank, I think we need to think, why did we buy it? How did we learn about that offer? And kind of think like a customer. Take a whiteboard. I used to do that whenever I buy thing. Oh, did I really see an ad? Did I really talk to someone? Was it like, how did I got convinced to buy this product? And the second thing I would say is, I think they should ask their organization, give me the data. Like, there's no shy in asking why we are not there, and keep opening up new thoughts and asking out for the data, right? And these financial institutions, everyone has the data, but as a marketer or a professional, as a data professional, you need to kind of chase and get the things out, and think like a customer. These are the two things I do that myself, and it really helps me as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, data really lies at the bedrock of everything, and then that really helps smoothen out the customer experience. And I think we have quite a good sharing from everyone in terms of the digital disruption in the BFSI domain. Thank you, panelists. I hope everyone has gleaned something from today. I mean, I'm sure I've learned a lot more in the BFSI domain. So don't forget to take the survey at the end of this webinar. And do let us know if there's any other questions. I think we have answered most of it. Let me just do a quick check. Yep, I think we have covered it. So until the next time, I mean, remember to take the survey and give us a lot more recommendation in terms of what topic we should cover up next. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation by Keith and the sharing by Pavel, and also the CDP demo by Manish. So until next time, we'll see you soon again. Thank you.